Y'all can be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had a wonderful evening. We'll continue on with the testimony. Mr. Zion, call your next witness. Or Ms. Scrub, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Your Honor. The State of Ohio calls Yussuf Ibrow to the witness stand.
Just come on this way. Okay, I need you to raise your right hand. You solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. Okay, go ahead and make yourself comfortable there. You've got an aerial mic there in front of you. I need you to state your name for the record and spell it for me so that my court reporter can get used to your voice.
Yussuf Ibrow, Yussuf Ibrow.
Y'all hear him okay? Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Yussuf. Thanks for joining us here today. Could you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury a little bit of your educational background?
Yes, I graduated from Mount Carmel College of Nursing with my bachelor's in nursing in 2018. I've been working at Mount Carmel since 2015 prior to graduating from school.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got a great voice. Just belt it out for
Okay,
us.
sorry.
Okay, because everybody's got to hear you, and
Okay.
I know you might be nervous or whatever. Just take a deep breath
Okay.
and let us have it.
Can you guys hear me now?
I think they need a little more.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. Like I said, my name is Yussuf. I graduated from Mount Carmel College of Nursing in 2018. I was working at Mount Carmel prior to that, started in 2015 while I was in school. And then I started in the ICU when I graduated with my bachelor's in nursing in 2018.
Okay, thank you. Were you licensed in 2018?
Yes, I was.
Are you still employed in the healthcare industry?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I want to take you back to an ICU patient that you encountered in September of 2018. Do you remember a patient by the name of Bonnie Austin?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And is there any particular reason why you remember Mrs. Austin?
I was fresh out of orientation. I was a new grad. She was my first patient that I had on my own that passed away.
Okay.
So that's why I remember her.
Okay, thank you. And Yussuf, were you scheduled to even come into work that night?
I was scheduled, but I was on call, so I was not there from the beginning of the shift.
Okay. Can you explain what on-call means in this context?
So essentially, depending on how many patients are in a unit in our ICU, it calls for a certain amount of nurses. So if there's less patients than amount of nurses that's scheduled for the night, then they'll put certain nurses on call until other patients come to the unit, and then they'll call you in. There's a possibility you may never be called in, and you just kind of stay on call all night.
Okay. And this on-call status, was this a rotating status, or was this because you were a newer nurse? Please explain.
So with the on-call policy, everybody gets rotated through. But since I was a new grad, I've never been on call, so I'm first on the list. At that point, I was first on the list that night to be on call. So I was called in probably a couple hours before my shift to let me know that I would be on call for the night, and they would give me a call whenever they needed me.
Okay, thank you. And on that evening of September 30th, you did receive a call, is that true?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And what did you do when you got the call?
So I got the call around, it was 9 something, I don't remember the exact time. So you have about an hour to get to the hospital. I lived close enough, so I just got ready. After I received the call, I was told that there was a patient coming from the ER that was going to be my patient. So then I got ready and headed to work.
Do you know what time you arrived?
I believe I clocked in at 10 p.m.
Okay. And did you go directly to the ICU?
Yes.
What did you find when you got there?
So when I arrived, usually there's you find the charge nurse to see where your assignment is, but there was nobody around. Everybody was checking the patient in. So I think I found a nurse, and then she told me where everybody was, what room everybody was in. So then I went over to the room.
And whose room was that?
Miss Bonnie Austin.
Okay.
Hey, you're starting to
sorry.
get your voice down a little bit.
Did anyone brief you as far as her issues?
Yes. So the charge nurse was in the room alongside with a lot of other nurses, and then she gave me a quick report about what was going on, so I could take over.
Okay. Do you remember what her chief problems were?
So she came in as a cardiac arrest. From what I remember, I was told that she arrested prior to coming to the ER and was intubated in the field. And then when she came to the ER, she arrested multiple times. She was down in our ER for over an hour, just arresting in and out.
Okay. Had a physician already talked with the doctor, had a physician already talked to the family about a code status, her code status when you got there?
Yes. So in report, I was told that that family was deciding on withdrawing on the patient. So it was just a matter of time. There were some things that they needed to talk over because there's a lot of other things going on. So as I was taking a report, I was kind of already let known that this patient was going to be possibly terminally extubated.
Okay. And you indicated there were some family issues going on. Do you remember what those were?
From what I was told, I guess the husband was very upset of the condition. I was told that as soon as the patient got to the ICU, the family was brought back in so they could see the patient. And then I guess husband made some remark about killing himself. So they sent the nephew, I believe, home so he could collect the husband's guns and things of that sort. So that was being sorted out.
Did this create any sort of delay?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to turn now to some medical records. And it should be noted that I did share these with Mr. Baez before we got started. So he knows that we're going to be putting those up. I'm going to refer to State's Exhibit 10C, which has previously been published in this proceeding. Okay, Mr. Ibrow, what does this appear to be?
This is a discharge summary by the admission doctor.
Okay. And could you please review that paragraph and let us know if you believe that correctly details this lady's condition upon admission and the course in the hospital?
Yes, everything's correct on there.
Is that better for everybody? Okay. So this details some presenting issues, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. You've already testified that she arrested, correct?
Yes.
And then there was also a discussion about halfway down about, in quotes, a large tension pneumothorax.
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us what that is?
So essentially, like one side of her lung has collapsed, so they needed to put a chest tube in so they could reinflate the lung, and that's what it was.
Okay, thank you. And when you first met her or came upon her, what did you find relative to that problem, if anything?
So she had a couple things. She had the chest tube in still, and then she also had a pacemaker, temporary pacemaker on. She was intubated, and then she was on Levophed, which is a medication to bring the blood pressure up.
Okay. Talk to us a little bit about the chest tube. What did that look like?
There was some blood in the chest tube.
Where on her body was that?
I do not recall what side of the chest it was on.
Okay. Have you, in your practice or on this lady, seen what that chest tube for pneumothorax looks like on a person?
Yes, I've been part of, assisting with insertion of chest tube. Usually you give, as a nurse, you're given the pain medication as the doctor makes the incision so they can put the chest tube in.
Where does that go on the person?
Usually into the lungs.
Okay, and so,
She wants to know, how does it get there? They
Basically,
put it through the side of the body, they throw it down?
yeah,
the
so
throat?
basically they make an incision on the side of the chest, and then they go in there and it's like it's a sterile procedure, and then they basically insert this tube in there, and then they sew it up and they put a dressing on there.
Sorry to interrupt you there, but
always appreciate the help, Your Honor. So that required breaking the skin and
Yes,
going inside?
yes.
Okay. And you also referred to the external pacer. Can you talk to us about that?
Yes, so she had on an external pacemaker, basically which is like a pad that you have one in the front and one in the back. That's the same pad we use for CPR. So you connect it to the CPR machine. It lets you know what's going on, like the rhythms. And in that machine, you could also turn it to a pacer mode, so we could capture, basically, her heart wasn't beating correctly. So then they had to put the pacemaker on, and then then the pacemaker was set to a certain rate. I believe it was 70. So that means she's getting 70 beats a minute, like throughout the whole process. And then there's a milliamp on there that you kind of mess around until you get like a capture. So basically you get a spike before what we call before every QRS, and that's how you know that it's working.
Okay. Was she showing any reaction to having that equipment on her body?
Yes. Usually, I mean, it's like a small electric shock through the skin, so she's doing the load jerking of having a pacemaker on.
Okay, all right. Have you reviewed her medical record?
Yes, I have.
Did you contribute to her chart?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Did you chart her reactions to testing by you for her overall condition?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Did you chart her reactions to overall condition, such as consciousness, pain awareness, whether or not she was alert?
Yes, I did a full assessment. I believe it was 2118 is when I put in a full assessment.
Okay. I'm going to place on the screen portions of State's Exhibit 10E, which is the direct charting flow sheet. I'm going to present that to the witness at this time. And I offer it to Mr. Bias. Let's go ahead and flip through the pages, see if they represent your charting.
Yes, this is my charting.
Okay, this is the second page from the document. And I see that there's a pain intensity scale and then a note, see below. The note does not seem to be too descriptive. Do you see that?
Yes.
TC. However, below that, there's discussion of the Glasgow Coma score. Can you tell us what the Glasgow Coma score is?
Essentially, it looks for how responsive patient is. Are they moving their eyes on their own, or do you got to stimulate them, or are they doing anything? Same thing with verbal. Are they talking? Are they not talking? Are they grimacing, groaning? So it gives you a score, and we use the Glasgow scale for different reasons.
Okay. And you've scored her as a 3, which appears to be no response. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
At the top of this next page, it indicates pacemaker insertion location. And what have you charted there?
The external pacemaker, and the rate is at 70 beats per minute.
Okay.
You guys still hearing him okay? Okay. They're kind of shaking. Give it a little volume there.
And then at top, at the next page, chest tube connectivity. And just for context, all these categories are in alphabetical order, correct?
I'm not sure how it
Okay.
is on there, sorry.
We can talk about that later. But what does this chest tube connectivity classification tell us?
Essentially, it's an assessment of the chest tube. It's set at 20 centimeter suction on the wall. It's clamped, meaning there's nothing going through it at that moment. And then I noted that there was no bubbling that was noted. So just kind of assessing what the chest tube's doing.
Okay. Next sheet, level of consciousness, CAM. What does CAM mean? Is that a scoring range or a tool?
It's a tool to see how alert a patient is, or if they're not alert. Usually there's like 4 or 5 options that you click through.
Okay. And then what does it say as far as your note, her condition?
As far as the level of consciousness, she was obtundant. In orientation, I wasn't able to orientate because she wasn't talking. Most of our patients that are tube can't really tell you. You can't ask orientation questions for.
Okay. So for purposes of the jury, when you say orientation, what do you mean?
So you ask them, where are you? Why are you here? What's the date? Just kind of go through, see what their mental status is at that point. Are they confused? What's going on? But if they have if they're intubated, usually they're not able to speak to you to tell you that.
Okay. All right. And then pupil reaction. What does that tell us?
Essentially, you put a light through their pupil to see if they're reacting. If they're, does the pupil size change, and that's what you're looking for. And are they equal? But they were not reactive.
Okay. Next page. Category of response to stimulus. What does the note tell us there?
Patient is not responding to any stimuli.
Okay. And what kind of stimuli would you have been using?
So usually you go either on the nail bed, you kind of put like pressure. You could do it kind of through the shoulder to see if they have any response. Do they move? That's what you're kind of looking for.
Okay. And then this lady had no response.
No.
Okay. We already know unable to speak. We established that previous. What about gag reflex?
So in the tube, in the breathing tube, there's usually a suction tube kind of connected to it. You kind of suction patients. A lot of times they have like a gag reflex when there's something down your throat. And she didn't have a gag reflex when I checked for her.
Okay. As to level of consciousness, what did you note?
Obtundant.
Okay. And the Richmond agitation scale, what is that for purposes of the jury?
I believe it's to note how agitated a patient is. Are they calm? Are they, are they, like you're kind of, it's a tool to give you a number as far as where their agitation scale is.
Okay, and what did you note?
It says see below, so I think there's another page for that.
Sorry. There you go.
I gave her a -5 unarousable. no response to voice or physical stimuli.
Okay, thank you. Yussuf, do you recall what medications had been given to this lady at the point you met her?
Looking at the chart, she has not been given any medication. The only thing she was on Leofed that I mentioned, which was a blood pressure medication, but I did not see any other medication that she was given.
Okay. What is the medication administration record?
That is where all your orders for all your medications goes through.
I'm going to present State's Exhibit 10G to Mr. Ibrow. Sir, have you seen this before?
Yes, I have.
Okay. It appears to be one page. And let's review the medications. What's the first medication?
Fentanyl,
And the second?
midazolam.
And then there's a third notation at the bottom, and it is also for fentanyl. Can you explain what that third notation is?
So the third notation is after you give any pain medication, there's always a pain reassessment, and that's what that is just a reassessment on that.
Okay. And then at the bottom is the Levofed, correct?
Correct.
Okay. To your knowledge, is this the sum total of medications administered to Mrs. Bonnie Austin on September 30th, 2018?
Correct.
Okay. Did she have any fentanyl on board when the chest tube was placed in her body?
Not according to the MAR. I know she was being intubated and she had a chest tube and placed down in the ER. They were using paper charting, so when somebody's coding, they use paper charting to where it shows what medication they're giving, you know, like epinephrine and any other medications they use for coding, but that doesn't cross over to the MAR. And I did not see that until way afterwards.
Okay. But to your knowledge, as far as pain medication, this is it?
Yes, in the MAR,
fentanyl.
yes, yes.
Okay. So let's turn back to the scene in the room for Mrs. Austin. When you entered the room, who was there?
The charge nurse and probably 3 or 4 other nurses, I believe.
Okay. And what did you first do?
I went over to the charge and got a report.
And then what?
and then I started doing my assessment on the patient.
And is this the assessment that appears in the medical record?
Yes.
Okay. And when you were done with that, what happened next?
At that point, like I said, we were waiting for family to, they decided they were going to terminally expect the patient, but they just needed to take care of some things. So we're just waiting for family to decide when they were ready.
Okay. And did a physician appear to manage this situation?
Yes.
Okay. Who was the physician that appeared?
Dr. Husel.
Okay. And what did Dr. Husel do when he got there?
So he came in to the room after family was ready, and then that's when I got the order for the fentanyl and the Versed.
Okay. And what was that order?
600 micrograms of fentanyl and 6 milligrams of Versed.
Was that order given verbally?
Yes.
Do you know who placed the order?
I did. I was on the computer at that point, and I entered it as a verbal order at that point.
Okay. As a verbal order, did you repeat it back and forth with the doctor?
Yes.
Okay. And were you satisfied that you were ordering what he wanted?
Yes.
Okay. Did you pull the medication from the Pyxis machine?
No, I did not.
Who did?
Another nurse, Jason Sims.
Okay. What did you see Mr. Sims do?
As far as, I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
As far as obtaining the medication, drawing the medication up, what were his activities with regard to the medication?
He went to the Pyxis and then brought back the medication into the room.
And did you see the original containers that the medication was in?
Yes, they were unopened.
Okay. Did you see him draw up the syringe?
Yes.
Okay. And then once he had drawn up the syringe, what did he do?
He gave me the medication to scan in and to give.
Okay. So when you scanned in the medication, do you have to place some things on the record as far as the status of the patient?
Yes.
And what are those things?
Usually it asks you for a pain score and like a sedation level also.
Okay. So we can see the medication administration record here, and there are some details down at the bottom. Can you read for us what those say?
Sedation level 4, somnolent, minimal no response, and that pain score is 6 on that
Okay.
one. And then the midazolam.
Okay. So why did you enter a 6 in pain for somebody that wasn't showing any reaction to any stimuli?
Injection, bleeding.
That's I'll permit it.
So essentially my understanding was Ms. Bonnie Austin, looking at her records, she was on pain medication. She was on Norco 7.5. She takes that at home, so she's on pain medication.
How did you know that?
It was part of her record. Like usually you're able to see in the initial, when she first got there, you're able to see every medication that she's on. And then you review the allergy, you review what medication she's at home. So my understanding was, she's been receiving CPR for over an hour. Somebody's, dumping on your chest for over an hour. She had a chest tube placed. She has a pacemaker that's externally like being paced at that moment. She had a tube in her throat. So all of those are things that causes pain.
Okay. But you remember that you charted no response to anything,
Yes.
and that she had a chest tube placed with no medication.
Yes.
Okay. What were you taught on the unit as far as anticipatory pain?
Sorry, I'm not understanding the question.
Do you know what the term anticipatory pain is?
Just anticipating pain. So you're giving pain medication in anticipation that the patient is going to be in pain due to something that you're about to do.
Okay. Does this describe what you did here?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what time you applied the medication? Or administered the medication, rather?
23, 22.
Okay. And that's the fentanyl and midazolam.
Correct.
What happened then?
So prior to that, before I even gave the medication, I was waiting for, so the medication was verified, and then family was ready at that point. So then I was told by Dr. Husel to give the medication, pull the tube, and then let family in prior, like in that order at that point. So after I gave the medication, obviously the patient was not presentable at that point, so I was cleaning up the patient. And then after I cleaned the patient up, I took the tube out, and family was waiting outside, and then I let family in.
Did you have any discussion with Dr. Husel about the dosage?
No, I did not.
Had you been experienced during any time in training a previous palliative extubation on the ward?
No, I'm not.
This was your first one?
Yes.
Were you aware of any other palliative extubations that took place on the ward?
Yes.
Okay. And were those done by Dr. Husel, or was that done by Dr. Husel?
They're done, I think all the doctors do it. It mainly is done during the day, but it does happen at night.
Okay. And do you remember discussing with any other nurses or preceptors Dr. Husel's practice for palliative extubations?
From what I recall, I was told every doctor orders different medication for palliative extubation. There wasn't like a set medication or dosage that everybody orders, so that's what I recall.
Do you remember testifying in a previous position, previous proceeding that Dr. Husel had a usual dose?
I've heard just.
Objection.
Sustained. Let's rephrase.
I'll move on.
Move to strike, Judge.
Okay. Disregard the answer.
After the extubation, how much longer was Mrs. Austin alive?
I believe it's like 23 minutes, like from the, I believe, gave the medication at 23, 22, I extubated at 23:30, and she passed away at 23:53.
Okay. And then State's Exhibit 10H, is your final pain assessment.
Yes.
Okay. And it says what?
Pain relieved with medication, and then the sedation level.
Okay. Did this lady ever react to any stimuli while you were with her?
No.
Were you with her until she passed?
Yes, I wasn't initially. So after I extubated, I let family and I believe there's a daughter and somebody else. I don't recall who else was in the room. I let them know that I was right outside the room to let me know if they needed anything. At that point, I was anticipating the rest of the family was in the waiting room, and they were taking turns to come back and forth. So I went to my desk across the room to start charting. Probably like 2-3 minutes in, family came out and they said they were leaving. So I asked them, is the husband coming back? And they were like, no, we're just leaving, we're going home. So I was surprised because I thought they were going to stay the whole time. So then after they left, I went back in the room to stay with Ms. Bonnie Austin.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Yussuf. No further questions on direct.
Cross?
Please score. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, Mr. Ibrow.
Good morning.
This is our first time talking, right?
Yes, correct.
So I just want to ask you, I think what we should start is chronologically a little bit. Miss Austin was in cardiac arrest before she ever came to the hospital, right?
Correct.
And then the squad intubated her, correct?
Correct.
And so basically her heart had stopped. The ER realizes she can't breathe. I'm sorry, the squad arrives. They realize she can't breathe. They intubate her. And she's rushed to the hospital, correct?
Correct.
And once they get there, she's coding multiple times,
Correct.
which means basically her heart had stopped multiple times.
Correct.
And that's when they put a external pacemaker on her.
Correct.
I guess the purpose of the external pacemaker is because someone can't keep pumping her chest continuously as her heart keeps stopping, right?
Yes.
And that helps so someone doesn't have to keep doing that, right?
Yes.
That is also a painful process, correct?
Correct.
And as a result of all of this pumping on her chest, her ribs cracked, correct?
She had
Objection, that's not the medical records.
Okay,
It is.
stop you two. Objections on the floor. Let's rephrase the question.
You ultimately discovered that she had a punctured lung, correct?
yes, from the X-ray that they've done, they found that she had a tension pneumo.
And that routinely happens when multiple times you're pumping on the chest, correct?
Yes, it can happen during CPR.
So, in the efforts of saving her life, ribs cracked, lung gets punctured.
Your Honor, may we approach?
You may.
I can move on, Judge. I don't think if Ms. Gross.
Do you want to strike the
okay with that.
question?
I'd appreciate that.
Okay, new question.
So, in essence, she's down at the ER with her heart stopping and starting for over an hour, correct?
Correct.
And then when you arrive, there are multiple nurses already attending to her care, correct?
Yes, correct.
And the extubation wasn't rushed, right?
No.
In fact, there were numerous things that had to be done because her husband was threatening to kill himself.
Yes, correct.
And the family had to make sure to go home and get rid of the guns that they had at home.
Yes.
And there was all that going on. A lot of, I guess, let me rephrase this a little better. There's a lot of things going on at this time, correct?
Yes.
And at this time, the extubation is delayed, so things can kind of calm down a bit.
Yes.
And the order was given when Dr. Husel came in and he gave the order. It was given in front of multiple nurses, correct?
Yes.
Including your charge nurse, correct?
I do not recall who was exactly in the room at that point.
But you know it was multiple nurses.
Yes.
And nurses, of course, who had far more experience than you.
At that point, yes, I was a new grad, yes.
Okay. And no one, not a single one of these multiple nurses that were in the room spoke up or voiced any concerns over the dose amount, correct?
Correct.
And in fact, you thought it was an appropriate dose, correct?
Object.
Sustained.
Based on your training and experience and what you had seen in nursing school and your experience with a preceptor and all of that, you found it to be an appropriate dose.
Object, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Did you have any issues with the dose when you heard the order?
So with the dosage, from my understanding, just from the brief, we don't go too in detail about palliative in nurse school and training, but we're told, because like for palliative extubation, you give medication, you give pain medications. A lot of times it's more than what you would normally give. And then from at that point, because of everything that has happened prior to that, I did not question the dosage because of, everything that's happened prior to her coming to the ICU.
So you took into consideration all the pumping up to the chest, the broken ribs and the lungs.
Object, Your Honor.
Sustained.
You took into consideration that she had a punctured lung, right?
Object, Your Honor.
It's in the,
Okay. It's apples and oranges. Sustained.
okay. Sir, you testified under direct, with this prosecutor asking you about that her lung had to be filled up with the tube, correct?
Yes.
So it wasn't a healthy lung, right?
The lung has collapsed, and that's why they had to put the chest tube in.
Okay. So, given all of that and the multiple arrests at the ER that you testified on the direct examination, you took all of that into consideration when analyzing the dose. Is that basically what you said?
Yes.
And in fact, you placed the order. I'm showing you Joint Exhibit 10, page 48 to 49.
I'm sorry. Two people. This is med order.
Here is the order time, correct? 2310?
Yes, that's correct.
And then the order was reviewed by pharmacy, correct?
Yes.
At 23:15, 5 minutes later.
Yes.
And the pharmacist was Talon Schroyer, correct?
Yes.
And he approved it, right?
Yes.
And then you didn't administer it until later, correct? I'm trying to find the exact time here.
23:23.
23:23. So that was after the pharmacy had approved it, right?
Yes.
So you relied on the verification that a licensed doctor of pharmacy reviewed this order and approved it, correct?
Object.
Sustained.
Did you rely on the pharmacy approval before you administered this dose?
So most of our medication we give gets approved by pharmacy, and I saw that the medication was approved by pharmacy.
And that, of course, gave you more confidence in the order, correct?
Yes.
Now, Dr. Brady was also at bedside, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And Dr. Brady came in and took a look at the patient, correct?
Yes.
In fact, Dr. Brady also checked and noticed that she had agonal breathing.
Yes. I think at that point she was starting to, because after Family left, I was in there for a little while, and then Dr. Brady came in, and then that's when she started doing the agonal breathing.
And it wasn't because he got there. She was
No, she was, yeah, it wasn't because she got there, but she was just starting the agonal breathing process at that point.
Okay. And she was on 100% oxygen, was she not?
Yes, she was on a ventilator at 100%.
So that would be a significant drop off from 100 to 21% oxygen in the room air, correct?
Yes.
And when Dr. Brady arrived and he saw her agonal breathing, he couldn't find a heartbeat, correct?
I don't remember what he did.
Okay, let me see if I can find that note. Can you find that for me? He's printing it now. It's the same note we went over. Reference. Okay. Now, after she was extubated, you said after like 2 or 3 minutes, the family left,
Yes, that's correct.
and Miss Austin was free of pain at that time, from what you could see.
Yes, she wasn't agonally breathing. She was resting comfortably.
Okay. And once they left, you stayed with her so that she wasn't alone when she passed away, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Because you felt that was the right thing to do.
Yes.
Sir, you weren't part of any romance at the ICU unit, were you?
Sorry?
Sorry for the question, but I have to ask.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
You weren't,
Strike the question.
you weren't part of a bromance at the ICU.
Again, object.
Sustained.
I thought the sustain was on my comment about.
Okay, let's do it sidebar here. We're not doing talking. Ladies and gentlemen,